I am talking today about one of the most controversial classes here at Harvard. It's known as MLD 201, Exercising Leadership, the Politics of Change. And it was created by this sort of musician, philosopher, leader, consultant known as Ronald Heifetz. He's almost sort of godlike figure here at Harvard and much more globally across the leadership circuit. And he pioneered this concept known as adaptive leadership, where the concept of leadership in this sort of scenario is trying to move people to make change happen in a situation where the solution to the problem is not very clear. And at the heart of this course is really understanding the difference in the nature of problems. Essentially, problems that require leadership can be divided into two types. The first type is known as a technical problem, and the second type is known as an adaptive problem. In a technical problem, the problem and the solutions that are required to solve that problem are known. So take, for example, we have to build a bridge across the Charles River to connect Alston to the Harvard Square. We know the distance between these two cities. We know the size or the breadth of the river. So we would get the engineering leaders, the technical leaders, the operational leaders to come measure the size of the width of the river and create the bridge. There we know what is required to solve that problem. We know the resources that are required. We know the timelines that are required to solve that problem. On the adaptive problem, on the other hand, we don't have a clear solution at play. We have a sense of what that problem is, but we don't know what the solutions, the ideal solutions that can be applied to that problem will be. And it also often involves time. So you have to take time to try to understand what that solution would look like to solve that problem. It involves engaging people and trying to move them from habits that they are used to new ways of doing things. And at the end of the day, we don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know what's going to involve solving the problem. We don't know how much it's going to cost. We don't know the resources that are going to be applied. We don't know clearly how that problem will eventually be solved. This is what is known as an adaptive problem. And many modern problems that require leadership, that require taking people across the line into new ways of behaving, require adaptive leadership. And this is what this course is about. And in its own unique way, it's a class you show up to where there is no professor that's teaching you. The syllabus is clear. What we discuss in each week is clear. But the professor comes into the class and does not say a word in terms of how we should address the curriculum for that class. She starts off, by the way, the professor that I was with is Professor Chipungu Farai, and I was really excited to be taking this class because there's not many Black African professors here, and there's not a lot of Black African women teaching here at Harvard. So to really have this renowned professor of leadership with a background in consulting taking this class was something that I was looking forward to. The class, however, is non-conformational to how all the classes here at Harvard are taught. Typically, at Harvard classes, you would have a professor who comes in, talks to the theory of the curriculum that is being covered in that day of class, and then takes feedback questions from the student body. In this class, on the other hand, the Professor Farai, comes into the class. She gives about 30-minute concept overview of what it is that we're discussing, and then she takes a seat and hands it over to the students to discuss. And I can tell you that in the very beginning of this course, it was anarchy, it was chaos. Some students thought that this was the place where they could come in and become as mean and as terrible and as wicked to other students as they could. And of course, they did face the consequences. They were shut down by other students. In some weeks, especially early on in the class, there was not a clear sense of what direction we were going. You know, people were coming into the class and talking about their personal issues, essentially using the class as a kind of psychological therapy for the problems they were facing. And so many times, we always had to come back to the concept of what is the work that we're meant to be doing. And this class really, really, for me, helped me understand leadership through a non-framework approach. The typical approach to leadership in business is that you have a clear vision, you put together a team, you delegate, and then you work together across a framework to try to get solutions to problems. In this adaptive leadership framework, on the other hand, the concepts are what is important. So for example, the concept of what is the work at the center? Who are the stakeholders that are necessary to getting that work done? What are the perspectives of these stakeholders on the work that is being done or that needs to be done? What are the factions that these stakeholders represent and divide themselves into, and what are the interests of these factions? How is the system currently working? And why is the system working the way it's currently working? Because the ideology of this class is that systems do not come out of a vacuum. They exist precisely how they have been designed to exist. So if a system exists, why does it exist in that way? And if you as a leader is trying to change that system, what are you trying to change it to? And what will that change you're trying to bring about? What will it bring about in terms of a loss for the existing stakeholders in that system? What loss would they try to prevent? And maybe that's the loss. That's the reason why they're fighting you. These are some of the concepts that we explored in the class. Some other interesting concepts we looked at was the range of disequilibria for productive work. This class prepares you to be able to intervene into a system and bring about disequilibrium, that is tension. It teaches you to be able to step into a system and be provocative, and to be able to understand how to be provocative, whether it's in a very direct way or in a conciliatory way or in a subtle way, and to see how your interventions are taken up by the system. It teaches you how to look at where the system is at, read the room, what is the room currently saying and telling you, and it teaches you the importance of planting the seed. Sometimes the change that we want to see, we cannot immediately bring them about, so we have to plant the seed so that over time that seed germinates and people are ready to take action on the topic. It's a very difficult class because we explored a number of concepts. For example, the current Middle East war, racial tensions in the global space, the caste system in India, and these various concepts that I've just talked about that we apply to these issues really triggered a lot of emotions in students. There were students who were weeping, there were students who were very angry, and it was a class essentially where there was a lot of tension. But at the end of the day, for me, my takeaway in this class is that systems that need change require leaders who have the courage to bring about that change. And those leaders need to understand how to go about their interventions so that they don't get cancelled out, so that their interventions can bring about the change that they truly, really want to see. It's a very interesting class, and I would like to know what your thoughts are about it.